Before starting the story, write in the comments section which country you belong to. In the ancient land of the Baloch Plains, where the golden sands stretched far beyond the horizon and the wind whispered secrets of old, there lived a princess named Sassi. She was the daughter of the mighty king of Bambor, known throughout the region for her beauty and gentle spirit. Her hair was dark as midnight, cascading in waves like the flowing rivers after the monsoon, and her eyes held the calm and depth of the desert night. Though Sassi's life was luxurious and filled with comfort, her heart carried a quiet longing, an unspoken yearning for something beyond the palace walls. Sassi often wandered the palace gardens alone, her soft footsteps leaving faint imprints on the sand. She watched the birds take flight across the skies, imagining lives outside the walls she had never seen. Though her attendants whispered that she was fortunate to be a princess, Sassi felt a yearning for love, one that could not be measured by gold or jewels. She wished for a companion who understood the language of her heart, someone with whom she could share the silent moments of the dawn and the whispering songs of the night. Far away, in the rugged mountains of the Mengal tribe, lived a young man named Mengal. He was strong, brave, and wise beyond his years, yet his heart was tender. Mengal had grown up learning the ways of his people, the songs, the stories, and the wisdom passed down through generations. He was known among his tribe not only for his courage, but for the kindness with which he treated all creatures. Mengal often rode along the desert plains, listening to the wind and the distant calls of the caravans, feeling a mysterious pull toward the unknown lands beyond the mountains. Fate, as it often does, moved in quiet, gentle ways. One day, a grand festival was held at the river that flowed near Sassi's kingdom, where traders, travelers, and people from distant lands gathered. The festival was alive with music, colorful fabrics, and the laughter of children. Sassi, dressed in flowing robes of sapphire blue, ventured into the crowd with her attendants, her eyes curious and bright. She wished to see the world outside her palace, if only for a single day. Mengal had arrived at the festival with his tribe, bringing with him horses, carpets, and the stories of his people. As he walked among the crowd, his eyes caught a figure unlike any he had seen before, a young woman whose presence seemed to command the air around her, gentle yet powerful. Their eyes met across the throng, and in that moment both felt a strange, inexplicable connection. It was as if their souls recognized each other, drawn together by a force neither could name. Sassi's heart fluttered with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. She had seen many visitors at her father's palace, yet none had stirred her spirit like this stranger. Mengal, too, felt a pull he could not resist, a quiet urgency to speak to her, to know her. The festival's laughter and music faded into the background, and all that remained was the subtle, unspoken bond forming between them. As the day passed, Mengal found a chance to approach Sassi under the shade of a large tamarisk tree. Their conversation began with small words, but soon flowed like a river, each sharing stories of their lives, dreams, and hopes. Sassi spoke of her longing for freedom beyond the palace walls, and Mengal spoke of the open desert and the mountains that had shaped his life. Each word, each glance deepened the connection, planting a seed of love neither had expected but both welcomed with open hearts. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Sassi and Mengal felt a bond that was impossible to ignore, yet they both knew the realities of their worlds. Her, the princess of Bombor, and he, a young man of the Mengal tribe, lives separated by distance, custom, and duty. Still, That first encounter marked the beginning of a love that would grow in strength, tested by forces beyond their control and anchored in the quiet certainty of their hearts. As Sassi returned to her palace, she could not stop thinking of Mengal. And far in the mountains, Mengal rode back to his tribe, his thoughts consumed by the girl whose eyes held the vastness of the desert and the softness of a dawn yet to be seen. Though the sun had set, a new light had begun to shine in both their hearts, a light that promised love, longing, and a story that would endure through time. Days turned into weeks after that fateful festival. Yet the memory of Mengal lingered in Sassi's mind like the soft glow of the moon over desert sands. She walked the palace gardens with a newfound light in her eyes, her heart secretly dancing to a rhythm that only Mengal's presence could awaken. Though she smiled and attended to her royal duties, her thoughts always wandered to him, the young man whose quiet courage and gentle spirit had touched her soul. Mengal, too, could not escape the memory of Sassi. Each time he rode through the mountains or gazed at the river flowing near his village, he felt her presence beside him, as if she were a shadow of the wind, invisible, yet ever present. Among his people, he seemed calm and composed, yet in quiet moments, his heart ached for her. He had never believed that love could strike so suddenly, with such force, yet he now knew it was possible. Despite the growing feelings between them, the reality of their worlds cast a heavy shadow. Sassi was a princess, bound by her father's authority and the expectations of her kingdom. Mengal was a son of the Mengal tribe, respected and cherished among his people, but with no place in a royal court. The gulf between their lives seemed impossible to bridge, and yet their hearts refused to yield. They began to meet in secret, stealing moments under the tamarisk trees by the river where no one could see them. Their encounters were simple yet profound. Mengal would tell Sassi stories of the mountains, of the hidden valleys where the earth bloomed with flowers unseen by travelers. Sassi would share her dreams of seeing the world beyond the palace walls, of walking freely under the sun and moon, unburdened by expectation. They spoke in whispers, laughed softly, and sometimes just sat in silence, letting the sound of the river carry their thoughts. In those quiet hours, the distance between their worlds vanished, and only the connection of their hearts remained. But love, especially one as tender and forbidden as theirs, is never free from challenge. The king of Bambor, Sassi's father, had begun to notice the change in his daughter. Her smiles were softer, her gaze more distant, and her joy seemed tied to something beyond the palace. The king, protective of her daughter and wary of strangers, questioned her attendance and tried to uncover the source of her longing. Sassi, wise and gentle, could not reveal Mengal's name, for she knew that such a revelation would be dangerous for both of them. Meanwhile, rumors of a princess who wandered the palace gardens with longing eyes reached the ears of neighboring kings. Suitors arrived from far lands bearing gifts and promises, seeking Sassi's hand, yet her heart rejected them all. Each visitor, each offer, reminded her of the life she could never truly embrace without Mengal. Her refusal angered some, confused others, but it only deepened the bond in her heart for the young man she had met under the festival sun. One evening, as the sky burned with the colors of sunset, Mengal arrived at the riverbank with a small wooden flute in his hand.
The sound of its melody carried softly across the waters, blending with the whispering winds. Sassi waited, hidden among the reeds, and when she saw him, her heart leapt. They spoke no words at first, letting the music convey what language could not. Mengal's flute sang of longing and hope, and Sassi's silent tears became a testament to the depth of their emotions. In that fleeting moment, they made a silent promise. No matter the obstacles, no matter the forces that sought to keep them apart, their hearts would remain bound. They would endure the distance, the disapproval, and the dangers that awaited, for their love was a fire that refused to die. Yet even as they whispered their vows, a shadow loomed, one neither had fully seen. The king's suspicion was growing, and the winds of change carried with them the whispers of betrayal and the promise of heartbreak. Days later, the palace walls seemed to close in on Sassi. Her walks became monitored, her interactions carefully observed, and her freedom curtailed. She knew the risk of discovery was increasing, and yet her spirit remained unbroken. In the quiet hours of night, she thought of Mengal riding under the starlit sky, and that thought gave her strength. The love that had begun as a fleeting encounter now anchored her heart, turning longing into a quiet resolve. Mengal, too, felt the weight of reality pressing against his chest. He could not simply take Sassi away without endangering her life. The desert, the mountains, and the plains all held their own dangers, yet he dreamed of a day when they could be together openly. In secret, he began to plan, thinking of ways to bridge the worlds that separated them, while always holding on to the fragile hope that love, even in its most hidden form, could survive. As the stars rose that night, casting silver light over the river, Sassi and Mengal met one last time before the rising tide of uncertainty forced them apart. Their hands brushed and their eyes locked, communicating a lifetime of emotions in a single glance. Though words were few, their hearts spoke volumes of longing, of devotion, and of a love that was willing to endure every trial. And so their love continued to grow in the shadows, quiet and steadfast, yet threatened by forces they could not yet see. The stage was set for trials that would test their courage, their devotion, and the depth of their hearts. For the love of Sassi and Mengal was about to face the first of many storms.
The days that followed were heavy with tension. Sassi's father, the king of Bombore, had grown increasingly suspicious of her behavior. Her secret walks, the quiet smiles, and the distant glances had not gone unnoticed. In his mind, there was only one solution: to arrange her marriage to a prince from a neighboring kingdom, one who could bring alliance and prosperity to Bombore. The king did not understand that Sassi's heart had already chosen another, someone beyond the walls of his court, someone he could never accept. Sassi felt a growing sense of despair. She wandered through the palace halls, her steps echoing on cold marble floors, her mind clouded with fear and longing. Every plan she tried to make with Mengal seemed impossible. The risk of discovery was growing, and she knew that if her father's plans continued, their love could be torn apart forever. Still, her spirit refused to bow completely. She clung to the memory of Mengal, the feel of his hand, the sound of his voice, the warmth of his presence by the riverbank. Mengal, in his mountain home, also felt the weight of separation. Though the desert winds whispered of Sassi, he could not simply ride to her side. He had responsibilities to his tribe,
and the journey to Bambore was fraught with danger. Yet he could not remain passive. He sent messages through trusted travelers, secret notes hidden under rocks and in the folds of the riverbanks where Sassi often walked. In these messages, he promised patience, devotion, and the hope of a future together, no matter the obstacles. The palace guards, however, began to notice Sassi's lingering absence during her walks. One afternoon, as she slipped quietly toward the garden where she had last met Mengal, she was intercepted by her father's most trusted steward. He spoke with a mix of warning and authority, demanding she return immediately to her chambers. Sassi's heart ached, but she nodded politely, hiding the storm that raged inside her. That night, she cried quietly in her room, tears tracing paths down her cheeks as she thought of Mengal, wondering if their love could survive the growing walls around them. Meanwhile, the king sent emissaries to Mengal's tribe, questioning his intentions. The Mengal elders, loyal to their people, yet respectful of Sassi's family, warned Mengal to keep his distance. Mengal's heart rebelled at the thought of being forbidden from seeing Sassi, yet he understood the gravity of the situation. To act recklessly could endanger them both. In the silence of the mountains, he rode alone, gazing at the horizon, imagining Sassi walking through the gardens, her eyes searching for him. Despite the looming danger, Sassi and Mengal found moments of secret joy. One evening, under the silver glow of a full moon, they met at the riverbank, hidden from all eyes. The water reflected the light like scattered diamonds, and the air carried the scent of desert flowers. They spoke in hushed tones, sharing their fears and hopes. Mengal took Sassi's hands in his, holding them tightly as if to reassure her that their bond was unbreakable. "I will find a way for us," Mengal whispered, his voice firm but gentle. "No wall, no king, no distance can change my heart. We will be together, Sassi, even if the world turns against us." Sassi's eyes glistened with tears, yet a spark of hope remained. "I believe in you, Mengal," she replied softly. "Even if the path is dark, even if the days are long, my heart will wait for you." But fate is seldom patient. Rumors of Sassi's secret meetings reached the king, and he grew enraged. One morning, as the sun rose over Bambore, a royal decree was announced. Sassi was to be taken to a distant fortress, where she would be guarded day and night until her marriage to the prince could take place. The palace erupted in turmoil, and Sassi's attendants whispered of the impossibility of escape. Yet Sassi's heart burned with determination. Mengal, upon learning of the decree, felt a deep ache as though the desert itself had shifted beneath him. He realized that their love could no longer remain hidden, that to act was to risk everything. Gathering a few loyal companions, he set out towards Bambore, determined to reach Sassi before she was confined to a life of duty and distance. His journey through the scorching plains was perilous, but each step carried the weight of his devotion. Sassi, meanwhile, waited in her chamber, torn between hope and fear. She looked out of her window at the rising sun, imagining Mengal riding across the sands, fighting against the odds to reach her. Her heart ached with longing, yet she refused to surrender. She wrapped herself in her cloak, ready to take the first chance of escape, no matter the danger. That night, under the cloak of darkness, Sassi made her move. With quiet determination, she slipped past her guards, moving swiftly toward the riverbank where Mengal had first promised her a life together. Her pulse quickened, the night air filling her lungs with hope and fear in equal measure. Somewhere beyond the horizon, she knew Mengal was riding toward her, and for the first time in weeks, her heart felt free. But the journey ahead would not be easy. The desert was vast, the sands unforgiving, and the forces of men ever watchful. Yet Sassi and Mengal, bound by love and the promise of each other, were ready to face the trials together, unaware of the heartbreak, danger, and sorrow that fate still held in store.
The night was dark, and the desert lay quiet under a sky strewn with stars. Sassi ran through the sands, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. The riverbank lay ahead, a familiar landmark from the days she had spent with Mengal in secret. Somewhere beyond the dunes, she knew he was coming for her, driven by a love that had endured months of separation and trials. Mengal rode swiftly across the plains, the wind whipping past his face. Every step of his horse carried urgency and determination. He thought of Sassi's eyes, her gentle voice, the soft warmth of her hand in his. No obstacle, be it distance, desert, or royal decree, could quench the fire of his devotion. He had traveled tirelessly, following every hint, every hidden sign she had left behind. Tonight, they would reunite, and their hearts would finally speak without fear or concealment. As Sassi reached the riverbank, she paused, straining her eyes to see him. The moonlight shimmered across the water, and there he was, Mengal, riding toward her like a vision out of her dreams. Their eyes met, and in that instant, all the hardships, the dangers, and the long weeks of longing melted away. They ran toward each other, the world narrowing to the circle of their embrace. For a moment, the desert was silent except for the sound of their hearts, beating in unison. Words were unnecessary, their love spoke in glances, in the quiet strength of their hands holding each other. They had endured separation, threats, and the weight of expectation, yet they had survived, and now their hearts could finally rest in each other's presence. But fate, as it often does, is not gentle. The guards of Bambor, having discovered Sassi's escape, pursued her across the desert. The sound of horses thundering over sand sent a jolt of fear through her, yet she did not falter. Mengal, with Sassi by his side, guided her swiftly through hidden paths, across valleys and dunes that only he knew. Each moment was filled with urgency, yet their eyes met often, silently reassuring each other that they would survive this together. The desert tested them. Heat scorched their skin during the day, and the cold pierced them at night. Hunger and exhaustion threatened their resolve, but love gave them strength. Mengal spoke softly, telling Sassi stories of the mountains, of safe havens and hidden trails. Sassi's voice, filled with both fear and determination, encouraged him in return. They moved as one, guided by the bond that had grown unbreakable. Days passed, and the pursuit grew closer. Finally, Mengal led Sassi to a hidden valley, a sanctuary far from prying eyes. The valley was lush with green grasses, blooming flowers, and a clear stream where water flowed freely. It was a place untouched by kings, by rules, and by the harsh demands of the world outside. Here, they could rest, speak, and dream freely for the first time in months. But even in this haven, the world's cruelty was not far behind. Sassi's father, determined to retrieve his daughter, sent a final group of soldiers following the trail that Mengal had inadvertently left. The lovers sensed the approaching danger. Though they had found temporary safety, the reality of their love, that it defied kingdoms, law, and custom, was undeniable. In the quiet of the valley, under the stars, Mengal held Sassi close. No matter what happens, our love will endure beyond life itself. Even if the world takes us apart, our hearts are forever entwined. Sassi rested her head against his chest, tears streaming, not of sorrow but of the overwhelming intensity of their journey. I believe in us, Mengal. Even death itself cannot undo what is in our hearts. And yet, the world could not be kept at bay. When the soldiers arrived, a confrontation became inevitable. Mengal and Sassi, though brave, could not withstand the weight of numbers and the decree of kings. Their fate was sealed not by lack of courage, but by the cruel circumstances of the world. But even in their final moments, their hands remained clasped, their eyes locked, and their spirits united in a love that transcended all earthly boundaries. Legends say that the desert and mountains themselves mourned the loss of the lovers. Where their hearts had been, flowers bloomed out of season, rivers ran with unusual clarity, and the wind carried whispers of their devotion. Sassi and Mengal became eternal symbols of love's endurance, love that was pure, selfless, and unwavering, even in the face of impossible odds. Their stories spread across tribes, kingdoms, and generations, a reminder that true love, though tested by fate, leaves a mark that never fades. Though they were gone from the world of men, their souls were forever entwined, wandering together under the endless sky, beyond the reach of kings and laws, where the heart rules supreme. And in the hearts of those who hear their story, Sassi and Mengal live on, a testament to the power, tragedy, and beauty of love that cannot be tamed. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life love and emotional stories. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life.